I think everybody knows everybody today. So we just skip that. So first up, I'm looking for approval of the minutes. Has anybody had a chance to review them?
My motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Motion approved. Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes unanimous. Next up is public comment. Today we have a guest. So Ron?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ron Sturbuck, a traffic chairperson for SIMCA Neighborhood Association at Southeast Mill Creek. And it takes area about a lot. What I'm looking for is the link between McGillcrest Road, that's the 25th. And with that, I'm looking at a continuation of the progress on McGillcrest with sidewalks and bike lanes going over to 25th Street on the east side of the street at the border of the airport. From there, I want to go to south to the fire station number 6. And that will connect the bike path from McGillcrest over to the airport. Now, I started the program in 2018. So I'm here to say now that the progress is moving on McGillcrest and the lane is going to be a traffic left turn on from 25th to McGillcrest. And talking with the people at the I forgot the chief of the fire station, that are you going to do some homework for us, for the neighborhood association to get the sidewalk? And he says, yes, I will. And we're going to put a new, where the old, the Hertz Rent-A-Car is now going to be our student learning centers for the airport and the fire station. With that, I said this would be a good link to get in. So he was really with it, and I've gone to the city section, or excuse me, Linda, with the city council seat, and with the Brian Martin with the Public Works. Everybody's on with this. And so I'm here to say, I would like to say the budget continuing the sidewalk on 25th Street. Now, I took pictures of the drainage on the east side of the 25th over the years. And I decided that there's hardly any water in that area. So why not go put a bike path right there? Because the water is going underneath 25th Street, going to the quarries. That's where it's going to. So at this point, I would say I did my homework on this. And with that, we can keep the trees on 25th Street. and put the right there in the area where the ditch is now. At 25th and McGillcrest, there's walk signs on 25th, and they've been there for 15 years. But when you walk across the street, you're in the ditch. And it's been that way since then. So I rest my pace of speaking, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Ron?
I'll just ask a clarifying question that Ron, thanks for coming, Paul, Tyke, City of Salem, City Councilor Ward 1. Just looking at the proposals that we're going to consider later in the meeting. Have you looked at proposal number 9, the 25th Street multi-use path, and would that meet the need that you're addressing?
Yes, I was told when Mr. Anderson, the city council at that time, he said the program from Mission Street to Madrona and cut it in half. Because you're more likely to get more people to come onto the sidewalk going to the south.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
On that there, is there sidewalks already on the west side of 25th? Connected to there?
There's,
Yes, there,
yes,
5-foot sidewalk, it's very small, but it's there.
Yes.
but it's an old one,
Okay.
Yes.
and I would like a bike path pedestrian walkway.
It was on the west
Yeah.
side, then get across where you need to go.
Yes,
Okay, that's what I was wanting to know. Anything else? Okay. That closes public comment. Up next is amendments to SKATS 2024, 2029 tip. Steve.
Okay, so there's 3 amendments and there's info in your packets as part of the attachment for this agenda item. I could share them on screen. These ones aren't the easiest to see on screen, but I will do that. Okay. What do we have now? So the first amendment is amendment 25-10, and this well, all 3 projects are transit projects, and they relate to the formula transit funding that SAMTD receives from FTA. And in this first change, it's just not a very big update, but a change to the project description, which is adding some text about site improvements and facility work. Sorry, that's what they're deleting site improvements and facilities, and then adding work related to software and facility improvements. So the new description is their allocation for transit capital improvements, and it's for bus enhancements, software, facility improvements, and equipment replacement to keep the system in good repair. There's no cost change to that associated with that amendment. The next one, 25-11, is 307 formula funds for 2022. And the change being made here is Transit decided that they're going to use this funding for operating expenses rather than capital improvements. And that has a different match rate. So the cost for this project is increasing, but it's local match that Transit's adding to the project because they have to meet that 50% minimum requirement for operating expenses. And then the last third amendment is the essentially the same as the last one, the second one, where they're increasing the local match because they want to use the 2023 allocation for 5307 funds for operating expenses as well. So, that's, oh, and there's a name change, and a description change to both of them as well. Is there any questions?
What was the capital projects that were taken off the table?
The notes have been kind of written at a high level.
Yeah, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, so on this, if I can zoom in on, if you look on the amendment overview page, I always include what it was
Back in the
before.
packet.
So it reads, yeah, it is on the packet. Allocation used for transit capital improvements such as bus enhancements, site improvements, facilities, and equipment replacement to keep the system in good repair. So it's pretty general when they write them. Often we're putting these into the STIP like 3-4 years early, so they'll keep it kind of flexible and high level for that reason. And then
So there was no, Mr. for me, so there was no designated capital project that this money was appointed to. It was just 3 years ago or whenever we said, okay, we're just putting it in the capital fund. So I know they were working on a South Salem transit station.
Yeah, no, these funds are generally used for equipment or operating. And so years ahead of time, they kind of specify, we think we'll probably use it for equipment or operating in a very general level. In this bucket.
And it's funds that are specific to the transit.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's correct.
specific to transit, yeah. So they decided not to use it for buses, but to use it for operating, generally the bottom line.
Is this out of SKATS funding that this goes? This is state.
Yeah, well, it's federal funding that, but transit is the direct recipient for their formula FTA funding that they receive. To that category.
Can't use it for your own pass.
Right.
Sheriff, am I?
Yes.
So, and then on the first one, it seemed like the operative change there was to add software. So do you have a sense of like what kind of software improvement they're making?
I don't, and I don't know if maybe Shofi or anyone from Transit's online. No, sorry, it doesn't look like he is. I don't exactly know. Yeah, so I can't give you any more info on that one.
No problem.
We can ask and pay you next month.
Sure.
Excuse me, I have a question, please. So
Yeah, Michael.
we're taking, thank you, we're taking capital funds for operating costs. I understand you gotta pay to operate. But in the future, how are they gonna sustain their operating costs? Going forward, now we're using this money now, great, I understand. But in the long run, where's the money gonna come from? Can we continue this way or is it gonna be cut off later?
I won't answer that.
Yeah.
Mayor, that's a very general question, or we're not prepared to answer that today, that kind of question. Transit funding is very complicated. There are multiple funding sources, local, state, federal, and we trust the district to kind of make the best use of funds as they see it. But it's obviously it's a valid question, and we could ask the transit district to come in and present those kind of information to you if you want in the future.
No, that's okay. And I'm not suggesting there's any wrongdoing here. I'm just saying, now we're taking capital funds for operating costs and
Yeah.
you send it out 10 years or 5 years or 3 years, where are we going to be then? But no, that's okay. Thank you for
Right. I mean, it's a good question. The district's trying to balance, they're most things they have to do, operate the system, but also replace equipment when it needs replacing. So they try to be agile and flexing the funds where most needed at the time.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Well, it's a motion to adopt resolution 2014-2511, 25-4.
Mr. Chair, I'll move all three of those.
Second.
Move in second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So we're gonna change the agenda here just for a little bit. We're gonna jump to F first, then we can back into E. And this is really for the Salem area last time. So, okay.
Right, okay, transit again, continue the theme. This is a fairly simple agenda item. The transit district is trying to get some grants. Two are FTA grants and one is an ODOT grant. So looking at my agenda packet, two of the support letters are for Federal Transit Agency grants. One is for money for the development of the South Salem Transit Center and Mobility Hub. And the second one is for security improvements around the Del Webb facility. I think it's fencing, cameras, related equipment. The third letter is to ODOT, and they're applying for a transportation and growth management program grant to develop a mobility integration plan. There's more information about all three of these in the letters if you want to read more details. And with that, the request is for the chair to sign these letters of support to be submitted to FTA and ODOT. And that's it. I'll just answer any questions that I can answer.
Let's make a motion.
There's motion.
Yeah, to, that the policy committee chair sign the 3 letters.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Passes unanimous. All right. So, hey, we're gonna go back to item E. And review TIP project funding scenarios. Let's see.
Okay, I have some slides for this one and there also, as part of the packet, agenda item E, there's 2 attachments that we'll touch on during the conversation. The first of the attachments is the overview scenarios. 4 different scenarios that the TAC developed at their June meeting. And then the second part of the attachment to the video packet is list of the projects with the project costs, the scoring that the TAC did a month. So what we're going to do today is we're going to recap the project review process really quickly. I can do that and fast forward if it's too much of the UPs or past meetings. We're going to have an overview of the funding that's available for projects. So basically what we have to work with to program towards projects in the upcoming TIP cycle. We'll look more closely at the 4 scenarios that the TAC came up with. And our goal really here today is to talk about the similarities, the differences, get into some of the trade-offs, and hopefully identify the points of agreement between the group. Because what we'd like is to get direction from the policy committee that we can then take back to the TAC in July as we finish up the list. And then ultimately in July, we're going to have a request for funding approval. So this is kind of the step right before we get to that.
Well, not funding approval, but developing the list for the draft. Developing the list for the draft TIP. So, yeah,
The project list.
the project.
Process approval.
Yeah.
Wish we had that much money.
Okay, so the slide here is just a screen capture of what our general TIP development framework looks like, how the process works. So our whole process for developing the TIP involves a lot of steps, and it starts with a project proposal process. We have our regional programs, which are funded as part of the same SKATS discretionary funding that our actual projects are funded from. We then went through a call for projects, and that was a combination of capital improvement projects and planning studies. That was the deadline. Well, we had a pre-application in December and then a full applications that were due in February. So we had a list of proposals that we've been working with. We're now in the vetting stage, and we're getting towards the end of the vetting stage, but we had a pre-application review, and then we had our application review, which involved our technical scoring, qualitative scoring, some review comments from the public that we did in April. And then right now we're at this stage here developing the funding scenarios. So at the base here is, this is the foundation for what the TIP's built on, which is our long-range metropolitan transportation plan. So projects need to be listed in the long-range plan or be consistent with the long-range plan, as well as local TSPs, transportation system plans, the Chariot's long-range transit plan, and then things like our safety action plan or other corridor studies and refinement plans. So that's kind of the core of what we work on. And then just in the top right side here, also incorporated into the list of projects are things like ODOT selected projects that'll come a little bit later in the process for being added into the TIP. The transit formula funds, which we were talking about at the first agenda item a little bit earlier, those are selected by SAMTD because they're the direct recipient of those federal funds. And then any discretionary awards that might come this way to our region, those get incorporated into the STIP as well. So as far as our review process, we have our technical and qualitative scores, which were approved. The criteria was approved in January of this year. And that was developed basically to meet the requirements and some of the feedback from FHWA around what our selection process should look like. Applications were due in February, near the end of February. And then in March, we went through our scoring process. So we had TAC application presentations in March at the March TAC meeting on the 11th. Then we met as a technical scoring work group, which assigned the consensus technical scores. And then by the 26th of March, we had all our TAC members submit their qualitative scores. And then we went back in April and reviewed the scores with the TAC members from there. So this is the list of 10 scoring criteria that are part of the technical scoring. The first one, safety or security, addresses safety and security. That one, it was given a 2x weighting factor, and then all the others were just a flat, no weighting added to them. So these 10 components made up our technical scores. And then there was also the qualitative scoring portion, which was basically used to evaluate factors that we can't capture as part of that technical scoring. So this was on a 1 to 20 scale, and TAC members were able to submit their scores, and then they were added together and averaged into a group score. So we did a comment period in April, and we also, so a public comment period, which was April 10th through May 1st. And then we also forwarded 6 of the applications to ODOT for scoping of the proposal to see if the scope of the project matched what the funding request was looking like, what the estimates were. And then we had some time in May to review the comments and to allow sponsors to adjust the applications if needed. So here in June, we're of course reviewing the project funding options, and we're going to gather feedback. July is the next step where the TAC recommends projects and programs for funding, and then this policy group will ultimately, hopefully, approve or modify the TAC's recommendation so we can move forward with developing the TIP document. And then the last 2 segments here are that's the development of the TIP document that'll happen after we've gotten the green light on the projects. Okay, so where we shift to talk about the funding, this is just one slide with the sort of a capture of what funding we have available and then move into the scenarios to talk about each of the four. So when we started with our estimate, we looked at the time frame of 2027 to 2030, which is the main 4-year required cycle for the TIP document, and we estimated that we got $28 million available in those 4 years. But if you include since we do, as part of our TIP, we extended out 2 extra years, so it's 2 illustrative years. If you extended that out from 2027 through 2032, we then have about 44 million, which would be available for projects and programs. The second column is sort of what we already have in place in all of the proposals or all of the scenarios that you're going to see in a minute. We've set aside about 5.6 million for the regional programs. So that's the signal operation centers, the transportation options program that Chariots runs, some funding for NPO planning work, what we do here as a staff, and then the regional Safe Routes to School program. So that 5.6 million we'll reduce that original estimate by 5.6 million, and then again by 2 million, because that's what we've set aside as a reserve. And that's just a starting place of the reserve. That'll kind of, depending on what projects ultimately are selected, that'll kind of fluctuate. It would be a little higher or a little bit lower. But that 2 million is about 7% of what's available. So the last column is, before we jump into the scenarios, this is what we have available for our scenarios, or what we estimate to have available. So we're looking at about 20.3 million for the first 4 years, and then 31 million for the full 6 years if you include the 2 illustratives. And then lastly, we received 15 applications and they requested 59 million. So we're narrowing that list down to about 20 million of funded projects in the first 4 years, and then we can go a little above that when we incorporate the illustrative. Let me pause before if there's any questions or anything.
Sure. Yeah, so I noted a note on here, where you added, and we've added in scenario 3 and 4, the Orchard Heights project, so that Polk County had one. That's still within the city limits, correct? It's not outside city limits.
Yeah, it's
You didn't have any projects outside city limits, Polk County? What's wrong with you? You always complain.
Never asked.
So both those would be considered. It's in Polk County, but it's in the city of Salem.
Yeah, so that's a Salem proposal. That would be a Salem delivered project.
Right.
As far as like regional road miles that Polk County manages in the SKATS boundary, it's a pretty small amount. It's only a few miles. So I think finding projects that fit for Polk County can be.
That's good. It's more money for the rest of us. Yeah.
But we're not doing projects out in Fall City.
No.
We're not inside.
Yeah.
SKATS.
But I will tell you, that project is probably one of the oldest on this list, I believe. The Orchard Heights.
The Orchard Heights? Good. It's a good project.
Yeah.
What was it you need from us today?
Well, he hasn't finished his presentation. He was just pausing. He has more slides to show.
Got a few more. Thanks, Mike. So this is just a recap of what's in your attachment. And so scenario 1 captures 8 different projects, and you'll see the total of all these projects combined is about 18.9 million for the first 4 years. And then because it has phases that would fall in the illustrative years, it's about 32 million. So that's a little bit more than what we estimate to be available in the illustrative years. So a scenario like this, we think we can potentially make it work, but we would maybe have to move some funding around, or we'd have to we'd have to dip into our reserve as well. But I guess to start, where we the way we developed this first scenario was we sorted the projects by the qualitative score, because that was a point of emphasis with the TAP. We then went down the list, and the first project we actually selected wasn't the first on the list. We selected the Delaney Bridge project because that's a project we've already previously committed federal funding to, and there's a construction phase currently in our current KIPS illustrative years. So Marion County, in this case, reapplied for some additional construction funding to be able to complete that project. And since it also scored relatively well on the qualitative scoring and the overall scoring, that was the first one we selected because we've previously had commitments to that project and wanted to continue to see it move forward. From there, we basically went down the list and we selected one project from each jurisdiction with the highest qualitative score. And once we did that, I think at that point we had all the projects on this list except the Fisher Road and the paratransit project. So we went back a third time and we said, what are the next projects that still fit reasonably within what's available that scored well on the qualitative scoring. And so that was where the Fisher Road and the SAMTD's paratransit replacements projects fit into this scenario. So from there, we put a pin in this scenario, and then we wanted to test other scenarios. So for scenario 2, essentially what we did was we did the same steps as the first one, but we wanted to test a scenario that did not include the Wheatland project, and that was partially because it's a large project. It has a current price tag at $8.5 million, and I should note also that when we submitted our projects for scope review by ODOT engineers, they identified this one as potentially needing additional funding for the construction phase. And I didn't include that in our totals yet because we're still kind of working that through with the city staff. But when ODOT reviewed the process or reviewed the project and looked at the comparison to the Verta project, which was the most recent federal funded project in Keizer, they thought it could cost potentially an additional 1.3 million from what was in the application request. So for those reasons, we wanted to test a scenario that didn't include the Wheatland project. And that's essentially what you see here. It provides less spending than the previous scenario, but it has quite a bit more buffer, especially in the illustrative years. So we're only in this scenario only, I guess, moving forward with about $23 million of spending. So one option is, the PC could identify Wheatland as a high priority project for future funding, could go to the illustrative years, or that, this scenario could be combined with other projects. And so there's a flexibility, I guess, with this one, and I guess all the scenarios to some degree. Okay, for the third one, and actually I didn't explain why some of the projects are highlighted green. And the reason is because as we go through the scenario, there's 5 projects that show up in all 4 scenarios. So that's why 5 of the projects are highlighted green in all these tables that we're showing here. And those were the South Salem Transit Center, commercial street, urban upgrades from Wiltsey to Walm, which is near where the transit center is planned for, the Delaney Bridge project, the Delaney Road Street Improvements project in Turner, and then the fifth one that's in all the scenarios is the 11th Street sidewalk project. That's a Marion County application, but it's located in Almsville. Okay, so the scenario 3 here, again, we started with scenario 1, but we wanted to test one that didn't include the paratransit replacement projects. We also wanted to try one specifically that included Orchard Heights for the reason of just geographically having one in Polk County. It's a city of Salem project, but it's located in Polk County, so we wanted to test that scenario. And our total spending in this scenario would be about 20 million, which for the first 4 years, which fits into our goal, just under it by a little bit. And then the 6-year spending is a little bit above what our goal is for this one, because there's construction spending in 2032 that would kick it a little bit above what we estimate as being available there. Okay, the last one is the number 4. Bless you. So again, we sorted by qualitative score here, and we selected the highest scoring projects for each of the jurisdiction. We actually only did one project each in this case, and then we added Orchard Heights and nothing else. So it's essentially a project for each jurisdiction, with the exception of adding Orchard Heights on top as a second Salem project. So this one leaves a little more flexibility in the what'll be available, or sort of that between the cap and what's shown as spent here, or would be spent. So the first 4 years would be about 16.5, and the total 6 years about $28 million. So that's the 4 scenarios. This slide shows specifically the 4 scenarios next to each other for comparison's sake. And again, the projects that are in green here are the ones that are included in all 4 scenarios. The ones that are in yellow are projects that are in at least 2 or 3 of the scenarios. And then there's a number of projects that you'll notice didn't make it into any of the scenarios that TAC developed, at least in this first list that we're working on. Also included the scoring with a little bit of a gradient. So we have a column for the on the average qualitative score, the consensus score, and the combined score. And the darker shades are projects that scored higher on each of those. So the purpose of this was to kind of get a view of which projects were rising to the top, and how did they score, and no matter which way we looked at it. If we looked at the qualitative score, which was kind of the main driver for some of this, or if we looked at the consensus or the combined scores as well. Okay, so this one is like, I have the projects listed in qualitative order. And again, you see that the qualitative score projects, the ones that scored well, were included in scenarios to a large degree. The consensus score and the combined score, I guess it's a little, the projects that were selected are less consistent with the consensus scoring, but when you put the combined scoring together, we generally saw pretty good consistency where projects that scored well were. So I think that's all the slides I have immediately.
So was when we do the last slide. Okay.
Yep. And yep. So if there's any questions or direction or discussion that we want to start out with,
Thanks for your presentation. It's really good. Glad I listened. In your last sheet, 24.5 million funding for property acquisition has been secured. What I don't know if we can, yeah, because you know exactly what property they're buying for $24.5 million.
That's not exactly what that means.
Oh.
We know the property that they're buying in South Salem.
Where is it, Mike? Can you remind me?
It's at Wiltsey?
Wiltsey and Commercial.
Wiltsey and Commercial, so the very far south end of Commercial.
Right across from Safeway?
Down the street.
Down the street,
Down the street.
further south.
On the same
Yeah.
side, where the drive-in used to be, there used to be.
Drive-in.
Yeah, so it's on the north side of
Yes.
of Commercial Street?
Yeah.
Okay,
Northeast.
and that's where they're gonna put the transits, but it's not, they're not spending 24.5.
Oh, no. I don't know what the property cost is per se.
Okay.
Maybe one of my staff does, but the construction cost at the center is what they're saying is gonna be 24 million. And the reason we put it in there is just to show you what the total cost of development.
Oh, total construction
Yeah.
cost
The
estimate.
total cost is 24 and they're asking for 1.7. So to give you an idea, we have a lot more money to try to develop. Some they might have already saved away. Earlier you saw they were asking for grants.
Yeah.
So they're gonna try to collect money in a number of ways to develop the center.
That's probably a really good geographic place for it. Because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really close to the end of the street.
Yeah, we spent years, not we, but SKATS provided some of the initial money to look for the appropriate place. And initially they were gonna look at
Or Walmart, yeah.
Yeah.
and that didn't just work out, so they had to go back and reevaluate.
So the commercial, we may keep going.
Yeah.
So the commercial upgrade from Wiltsey, that's needs to be done because of, because it goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane back to 2 lanes. So that would that take care of the 2 lanes all the way through? Do we know?
No way.
Counselor, do you know what the plan
It
is?
goes the other, it's fixing in the other direction. I worked at the BLM office for
Right.
about 10 years and came off of
Right,
I-5
And
onto
it goes into
Commercial,
one
and
lane.
you did the dance
Yeah.
from one lane to the other, but I believe this project actually fixes traffic headed the other direction, is that right?
It is
oh,
just
so
one segment, sorry, it's one segment of that 2 to 3 thing in the southbound direction.
Right.
So, I don't know if you would want to pull up Google Maps, but, a large portion of the reason for this project would be actually to add sidewalks on the
south
west
side.
side of the street, southwest side of the street, because there's a big apartment development there
Right.
that developed a long time ago, did not build sidewalks, and we have no means of getting them. And so this would be a way to get those sidewalks. The other side of the street also does not have sidewalks at this point, but that would likely come through development because it has development potential. So they're not in the right place anymore.
Commissioner Cameron, in short, it doesn't fix the thing you think it's gonna fix.
Yeah,
It's
so
fixing something else.
we're not gonna get 4 lanes both directions.
Not the whole way, no, it would cost a lot more if we were going to do that. Now, the transit
It's the
district
first thing
will
I
have
thought.
to do. The transit district will have to make improvements to the street frontage as part of their development. And that's separate. So if you zoom out a little bit.
Yep.
You can see where the drive-in was, right?
Right up
Here,
here.
it's seating.
But this only does 2 blocks.
Sorry,
This only does 2 blocks.
this only really does 1 block. So, I mean, it's a big block, but it goes from Wiltsey to Madras. In, so in the southbound direction, it would add the 2 lanes there and the sidewalks. Now, there still needs additional lane that direction. And I think even up that way. So yeah, it's not the whole thing.
It's a good start.
It's a start. And then it would include a pedestrian crossing down south a little bit further. That's the other.
Right here.
Got another 20 minutes.
I
Be nice to get that done.
know, it would be.
Any other discussion, questions?
On behalf of Dale, thank you, Mr. Chair, I don't know that we have anybody from Chariots. When we reviewed the projects as a city, we had questions about the paratransit vehicle replacements and just the life cycle that was identified in the application was that they have like about a 5-year life cycle, I think is what it said. And I'm curious, or was it longer than that?
For the paratransit, it's 8, because I just read their capital improvement program,
Okay,
which lists a replacement cycle for this. And I noticed that, I don't know if Steve can pull this up, but it's in, do you have access to the,
Yeah, that'll take a moment, but I could pull it up.
and I also dropped it into the chat.
Yeah, that's good.
So there's a number of vehicles that they have that are over 8, more like 15 years old. That those are 7 or 8 of them that are above 8 years or 10 years old for paratransit, and then they have another batch that's getting that age as well. So they have a complete schedule in their CIP about when the expected life of the bus, when they want to replace them, and then what the actual life of the bus is.
okay. I just, the application says currently, I'm not saying that they aren't, but it's currently 79% of the paratransit fleet is beyond its useful life benchmark of 5 years.
Yeah, and so Steve's brought up, this is from their CIP that they just are going to their board with. And so they have 2, 4, 6, so that's 10 that are from, should have been replaced in 2019, happy. And then another 4 into 2021.
If you imagine the money's gonna show up in 2027 or 2028 or something like that.
Right, and you know, I believe they try to eke as much lifespan out of all their fleet as possible.
Yeah,
Given the realities of funding sources.
this is great. We didn't have this information during our conversation, so thank you.
Just found it yesterday, so I'm glad I found it.
Bill, any questions, discussion, anybody online? Comments?
I'd have one more question just for a general discussion, and maybe to Commissioner Cameron. When I saw the scoring, I was surprised, I guess, that Corden Road and Hazel Green didn't
Come up bigger?
come up the list. I'm just curious your perspective.
Well, it was definitely one of our priority projects, but Delaney is bigger.
Yeah,
Delaney is higher for us. And Delaney helps Almsville as well, even though it's outside the city limits. That bridge project there's a lot of accidents, safety issues that have happened in that particular area.
yeah,
Corden, and there's money already there moving forward on the Delaney project. Corden and Hazel Green is planning. And that's what we were going after for that. If I remember right, it was a planning number.
no, you have 9 million, I think, for Goose.
Well, yeah, but we were just looking to get started on the planning, I think.
That was on
I think you were thinking of Brook Lake. It's a plan
Brook Lake
for it.
and-
Oh, that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the reason, because they're looking at a potential roundabout
Yeah,
at Hazel Green. So
yeah.
there's just not enough money. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on it. When I looked through the list, I mean, we agreed a few months ago, right, that we wanted to maintain the safety high, for our qualitative scoring. And to me that what you're saying about the Delaney Road Bridge really makes sense, right? It's an awkward intersection and like to just improve the safety at that intersection.
Corden and Hazel Green, it's not as much a safety issue.
Right, everyone comes to a four-way
Yeah.
stop, right? But when I think about like the overall health of moving vehicles across the region,
Yeah.
to me, that seems like the biggest problem on this list. When I think about like the free flow of traffic, and maybe it's the only place where I've ever sat in traffic. Projects on the list. There's been some times when I've been there and I'm like, wow, this is a
We'll
problem.
appreciate your support.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But glad to hear your perspective on it. Thank you.
And Lonnie has a comment.
Yeah, Lonnie's on, yeah.
I just wanted to add too, thank you. I just wanted to add that if there was enough money, even if there wasn't for the whole construction project, we could do something similar at Corden and Hazel Green like we have done at Delaney, which is, start the PE and or the right of way without the construction. So just throwing that out there as an alternative.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how to get it going.
Got it.
And Counselor, just for your information, the scoring is just a general guideline.
Right.
So
Yeah.
some of these projects don't have some of the items in them, so don't get those points.
Yeah.
So they might score lower, but yet.
You can still be passionate about it. You can't score my passion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll ask a question. This is kind of for Julie and City of Salem.
Yeah.
We funded Orchard Heights and Northwest project in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one of the first projects kicked out. We had a shortage of funds. So if we do put it in here, will it get done?
Well, there is an Orchard Heights project that's currently funded and going to development
Okay.
in the near future. I don't- you-
Right, on the south side of Orchard Heights, we originally had applied for can't remember if we actually applied for both sides of the street. We definitely looked at doing both sides. But because of the high cost of everything, we ended up dropping back and the award was only for the south side. So this would be going forth with the north side and, yes, if we got the funding, we would deliver the north side. We never actually got the funding for the north side previously.
Thank you for clearing that.
And the south side's going to construction fairly soon, right?
I can't remember now if it's 2020, later in 25 or 26. It's probably going to bid later in 25, but construction may not be till 26. Unfortunately, as you've probably come to realize, these projects take a very long time.
Yeah, I think we all understand that one.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, so.
Yes, sir.
Following up on, Counselor's comment and Lonnie's comment, that didn't make it on here, right?
The Cord Road in Hazel Green, no, it's
Because of the full amount of money.
a $9 million project. They submitted for the full amount,
Okay,
yeah.
and that's where I was thinking, maybe I had a conversation with Lonnie or Public Works Department about if we could just get anything to help start working towards that, that would be a priority, because we know how long it's gonna take to, do the right of way and do all that stuff. Cause
Yeah.
with Easy Orchard sitting on that corner, we're gonna have to realign I think the road gets to have to be realigned and all kinds of stuff there. That's why it's a big number.
So two thoughts jump to mind. The county can bring this back at the TAC meeting and say, hey, TAC, SKATS, we want to just apply for that, just the design segment or part of this project. Now, it'll be the TAC deciding, okay, well, that's $2 million you want for design, but we have all these other projects to try to fund, so it's gonna have to be discussed. The second thought is, once you have designed a project, there's expectation it'll be built. You spend money on design, so the question is, does that kind of lock us in for the future? Either the county itself building it, or the SKATS or some other grant coming your way to build it. Because once I think there's like a 10 years.
There
It's
used
still
to
not-
be, they took that away.
Okay. But if you design something and you don't build it after many years.
Design doesn't age
You
well.
might have to go back and,
Design doesn't age well,
yeah, so. There's planning work like the one at Brook Lake and River, where you're trying to just get an idea of the concept, not the concept, but how it actually fit. Would it actually fit and work well, and what are the pros and cons? I think for Cord and Hazel Green, you kind of figured out, yeah, you want a roundabout there and it'll work. Just you want to start designing it. That's what I understand. So it's up to you and your staff if you want to come back to the TAC and say, look, can we fit this part of it in the mix? But we're at that stage where we're trying to make some final decisions in July. So
Right.
I'm not saying it's not impossible, but it's harder now.
I just think about the time it's good, sorry, Jared, the time it's gonna take to get anything done on the ground. And I try to look 10 years out at that intersection and the amount of development that could happen along Cordon Road. It's clear connection to I-5. Like, I take off my City of Salem hat and just think about the whole place. And it feels like an intersection that needs attention.
Yep.
So.
Well, it does impact the city residents.
Well, and we do have, right, the planning
Right.
study for Cordon Road that does include the city, and it's all aligned.
One other thing is, we still have $2 million in reserve. There's, at some point, the reserves have to be spent, so theoretically, in 2 years, you know, we see what the reserves are and what sort of redistribution is. No promises, you know, the PC might say, let's have a small opening for a new project, or the PC might say,
We're gonna finish some stuff.
let's finish something. So, you know, remember that there is 2 million reserve that you guys have to decide at some point between 27 and 30, where it's going to be allocated, so.
But I think the tradition's been to make sure we get projects finished.
Well, of course, yeah.
That's
We want
great.
Project
Yeah.
finished, and we've seen a lot of cost escalation. Now, it's gotten a little better,
Yeah.
but part of that reason for the reserve is maybe not necessarily adding a project. It is, hey, we kind of expect some projects are gonna be under estimated. Things pop up, you know, that you didn't prepare for during the design, cost escalates when you start bidding in projects. So part of the reserve is to handle that. Honestly, I wish we had $10 million for the reserve. We saw so much cost escalation and changes. A $2 million reserve is nice to start with. I don't know if it's gonna be adequate over 6 years. But Ray's right. We should continue to adjust the tip as we go. The decision by the policy committee is how aggressive do you want to program funds versus maybe a little more cautious and conservative. You know, I mean, how many projects do you want to pick to kind of say, hey, these projects are actually going to start in 2027 or 2028. And other ones could be in our illustrative list, meaning if funds show up, we could add it to a specific year. That's another possibility too. So it's right now we're at that stage of, are we in agreement of what maybe the primary priority projects are, which are most of the ones in the green? And should we focus on those? And then how aggressive do you want to go with some of the other projects that are in the yellow? And which one of those scenarios kind of fits your eye best to a good balance of projects and a good balance among the region?
I just want to point out his optimism to have a project come finished under budget to allow us to have some money left.
It has happened.
It has happened, yeah. There was I filled one.
So of all the complaints of ODOT, there's been several projects that they've completed that are coming in under budget in the last 5 years that some of that money got moved up to Aurora, and we were able to do the Aurora interchange instead of doing it in phases. So we'll find money sometimes.
But when can we? Cause I totally support this project. That intersection is rough to get through and cars getting backed up. And you see everybody, it's my turn. And some people are more important than others. So when can we add projects to our list? As we finish these.
Yeah.
they'll drop off.
It all kind of comes down to money. You have to show fiscal constraints. So can you show you have the money? And like a project like that, we can obviously discuss it at the TAC in July and see if it's a scenario that would work. But pushing another project in is going to be a little tricky.
Yeah.
And something might have to fall off, you know. Or we could just say, we're going to wait a couple of years. We're going to wait till 2028 when various things will be clearer in our minds. We'll know how the projects that are programmed in 25 and 6 got done and 27 got done. Hopefully we'll have a better picture of our revenues, because it's always a guess on revenues. So we could punt a little bit and say, some of these things we want to do, maybe we have to wait till 27 or 28 before we put it in the tip officially, like assign it a year. But we could have it as part of our illustrative list, which, by the way, that's what ODOT is moving toward, having a 10-year, what they call a CIP, construction improvement program, where they're going to be having a long 10-year list. And then as they know better about the projects and their revenues, they're going to move like 1 year at a time into their 4-year window of construction or development. So
What have they been doing?
they've been kind of developing a 4-year STIP only. So they do their 4-year STIP every 3 years. We kind of match the same cycle of doing that. And they're finding that's not meeting their needs anymore. They're not planning out long enough, but also they're maybe putting in things in too early before it's fully been developed. The project's fully been costed out. And then they've gotten themselves in a bind, like overcommitting. So I think they want to both estimate projects better, but also have a longer list to choose from. So if that's the direction they're moving. I think it sounds pretty smart. We'll see how it works out. A lot of states do it that way, so.
So today, our task is to pick 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Not pick.
Yeah, we want to get your sense for if you're in agreement with, again, the green 5 projects up there were the ones that were in all 4 scenarios. So those were trending towards the top. And then the yellow ones were all in 2 or more. And we wanted to kind of, just by way of kind of sifting this down a little bit, I think the only other addition I heard to this was the Court and Hazel Green roundabout project, which is not on either any of the scenario lists, but potentially looking at like a reduced scope or like a study or something along those lines.
Probably the application has a cost for
It does.
design.
Yeah. But I guess my point is being like, do we have agreement that, you know, along with looking at Corden for that design estimate, do we have kind of agreement in the, if we added that to this list, do we have agreement that the highlighted projects are ones that we want the TAC to work on, kind of finalizing a recommendation for?
Mr. Chair, I would just say on the behalf of Salem, what I really like about nearly every project that's listed on Salem is that it's easily connected to a partner, right? So the one in green, the commercial street is really connected with the development of the South Salem Transit Center. It's intended to be able to improve access to that for people who we know will be walking to the transit center. The Fisher Road project, which is in 3 of the 4 scenarios, that part of Fisher Road does go in and out of the county. And really, we're doing the south part of Fisher Road, fully within the city, is part of our funded in this year's CIP. So Fisher Road is a high priority for the city. And I think in terms of the Orchard Heights project, which is in Polk County, but fully within the city, as Commissioner Cameron mentions, you know, I think it's probably fairly reflected here that 3 out of the 4 is Fisher Road and 2 out of the 4 is Orchard Heights. I think that reflects the conversation that we had internally at Salem, that Fisher Road probably has a slightly higher priority than Orchard Heights. And sorry that Councilor Varney isn't here to argue with that, since Orchard Heights is in her ward, but she participated in the conversation too. And I think that reflects our consensus about Fisher Road being slightly more of a priority.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of improvement on Ward Drive too as well. But then that would pull you out.
Well, it's in okay, but and
You
Northwest.
wouldn't be able to put that on your campaign flyer.
Well, you can tell them you got the south end of the sidewalk and they're not gonna know the difference.
Orchard Heights has been very developed.
Yeah.
The apartments up there.
Yeah.
This sidewalk got put in when we had a high school. Then we had a junior high, now we have an elementary school. So the amount of kids walking up this road, they're walking on a painted stripe.
Yep.
Yeah, and even then, it's getting broken up. Commissioner Lewis, back in 2018, at that time, he said he tripped over one of the root. Basically raised the asphalt, light on his face and skinned his knees up. It's just an area that really needs help.
Yeah.
And it's been there since 2003 or 4, when these projects were put on. Today, they're still there. So that's my point. It's safe for our kids. So maybe we can get safe routes to school money or something in here to help enhance what we're doing. Is that an option? Or when it's on.
I'm not sure their entire budget can do the infill on the north side of the road.
Yeah.
You know, those grants are very competitive, of course. The package, the legislature proposes more money for those, but we'll see how that package goes.
What package?
One package.
Is there a legislator? Legislative session going on?
And honestly, one of the reasons those grants are competitive and hard to get is because the criteria has been focusing mostly on Title I school areas. And so you have to ask yourself, is the project near a Title I school? It has the most points associated with it. So that's why a Wheatland project, as good as it looks, I don't think those schools are Title I, so, yeah. But there's other, there's the safety grant, ODOT has its own safety grants, but again, very competitive, but, could be something for Corden and Hazel Green, I don't know. It depends on how bad the accidents are there, so.
The other area coming to the high school is from the Bush College area, up Doak's Ferry.
Yeah.
They added a 3-foot asphalt area to the road and pinned white stripe. There's no street lights or anything, so those kids are walking half mile up through this dark, crooked hillside road, getting to and from school in the winter. And there is no sidewalks or curbs. Stretch.
Which segment again?
Doak's Ferry from Bush College School
Oh,
to
yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
It is no street lights, dark. It's just, those areas really need to be addressed.
And Mr. Chair, I'd just like to acknowledge our public commenter and seeing the priorities and that the 25th Street multi-use path didn't come on the radar for these projects, just acknowledging that, but also know that when we reviewed these within the city of Salem, we looked at that and definitely see the need for it, even if this isn't, the right pathway right now, so.
And just like I tell ODOT, when we're talking about trying to get statewide money competing against the state for projects.
Yeah.
Everybody has their intersection or their roadways. And Salem's no different.
Yeah.
We have a lot of work, and as Commissioner Cameron said, one thing we don't have is a lot of money. So, but I'm not supporting the ODOT bill, just for the record. They're fighting over right now, a little too much. So we need to get that bill back in, but let's get back to topic. So.
I think if I were to summarize my takeaways that I want to talk to the TAC about in July, it would be, we had general agreement on the highlighted projects, that these were priorities amongst the group, and in particular the green ones. And we should also look at, if it's possible, Corden Road as a starting design, programming that without construction yet. And then we would workshop our ideas, maybe come up with some refined options for this group, and they might, in the July meeting, it might be one version where we fund 5 projects, another version where we fund 6 or 7, and we can kind of gauge your comfort level at that point with how much we want to commit at this time, and then how much we want to kind of stay back on and say, we'll see in 2 years, or we'll stick it in reserve and go from there.
Honestly, board members, I'm feeling more comfortable with the kind of thought of identifying things we definitely want to go forward with, and then developing the list of what we'd like to go forward with, and maybe add that in 27 or 28 when we're sure about our picture. That way we're not binding us up into too many projects, but not cutting things off entirely. So I think we could talk about that at the TAC.
Yeah.
And there's good things about doing it that way.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just voice this, looking at these 4 and studying them over this last week. I like scenarios 3 and 4. And I really like 4 because I'm very conservative. Looking at our economy today and the direction we're heading, it's not looking for the future. Now, we might get more ODOT funding once they pass this transportation bill. But as of today, I have no idea what the future holds, and costs just keep escalating. Some areas, some of the bids are coming in less, and that's when they come in extremely high. So there's no rhyme or reason right now. The conservative thing is I'd like to come under budget to have a reserve so we can finish the projects when they need extra funding to get over to completion.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
You know,
Hello.
these are all legitimate projects, but in light of the dysfunction in the capital in Salem and the dysfunction in the capital in Washington, D.C., this conversation is almost like we're trying to estimate how many angels dance on the head of a pin.
You have that number, Steve?
I forgot to run that one.
Educate, medicate, incarcerate.
I love your analogies.
That's Mike's line. I remember it legislature, it's always saying. Cut trees, educate.
Anyone else have any comments on this topic?
I recognize this will come back next month, so
Yeah.
great discussion. Next month's the hard decision, but I think this has been a very good discussion amongst the people in the room and online. Setting us up for next month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item G. Steve, here's the hot topic today.
You a fan or something, Steve?
Looking forward to the August meeting. On the other topic. Okay, so this is the amendments that have been processed since the last meeting in May. And it's on the last page of the packet. I'll throw it on the screen too. So these are all administrative amendments that are included here. And the first one I'll highlight because it's a big project that we're familiar with as a group. It's the Center Street Bridge project. And the construction phase, the plan is construction in 2026. So we slipped the construction phase. It had been in 2025 to 2026. But I'll just note that the current price tag, this is for phase one, is going to come back and be updated. So when we did the update to that MTP amendment in March, we increased that to 200 million. So this number, which currently is at 100 million, this will get amended again, probably in the fall, once ODOT knows which funding sources they're going to use for that. So right now, it's just the kind of upkeep to put it in the proper year. The other, there's 6 total on the list. The other 5 are all transit formula funding. So 5307, 5310, various direct recipient FTA funding that transit receives. And these were all just smaller changes in their allocation. Just some adjustments when they get their actual apportionment numbers that we're updating here. So they didn't rise to the level as a full amendment like the ones we reviewed as a group earlier. So that's all I have for this month on the tip.
Any questions for Steve? And transportation planning below. Let's go through the policy meeting. Next policy meeting will be July 22nd. I'm not sure if I can make that one. I'll keep you all posted. Next TAC meeting is July 8th. And those of you, the people you have representing those TAC meetings, meet with them afterwards, get their rundown of their feelings. There's amazing information you can gain. And then the planning consortium UNPAC is August 1st. And where will that be held, Mike? Where's UNPAC held?
Last several meetings we've been having it online. I don't know if this could be in person. I doubt it.
Okay.
So it's probably going to be online again.
I should be able to make that one.
Okay.
And the OTC meeting is July 31st in Corvallis. Now, do we need to testify at this one or just, if you've never been to an OTC meeting, it's really interesting to go and listen for some of their discussion. You get to find out what's going on in the entire region of the state. And some of the things that amazed me was the I-5 bridge replacement. I mean, it's $7.9 billion project. So they have it at a 4% inflation rate. What that represents is $2 million a day. Just let that sink in for a minute. $2 million a day, that project's increasing.
Which project is that?
That's the I-5 bridge between.
Oh, up there, that
Portland
one
and
bridge.
7.9 billion.
I remember when I was in the legislature, we funded a big bridge thing. Was that 2005?
Yeah.
They did all those bridges. It was a couple $1 billion or something. I can't remember. So you're talking about the I-5
That's an I-5
between
corridor.
Columbia River.
Yeah. So the 205 corridor, or the I-5 corridor by the Moda Center, that is $1.9 billion project. And that also is going up $100,000 a day in costs. So, and back to the point, it takes so long to get these projects done. I'm hoping we can find ways that we can shorten some of the studies and processes, so we can put more of this money towards the asphalt bridges and the actual work, rather than being spent in offices and design and discussions, and environmental lockdowns. So I just want to share the information with you. I just found it astounding.
Mr. Chair, I'll add that the longest undersea tunnel in the world, which will go from Denmark to Germany, has 2 highways, 2 rail lines, and will cost just about as much as that bridge over the Columbia. It's under construction, it'll be 7.9 billion euros. So maybe a billion more dollars than it costs to go over the Columbia. So in some ways, the Europeans are doing it right.
I believe that's because they don't have anywhere near the administrative costs we have here in America. And Kevin, I think the I-5 bridge, since we were down there in the Capitol, has tripled since they passed that bridge project in 2000.
I voted for it, Mike.
Yeah, me too.
We built it.
And the transportation planning update, see below,
That first table is just a reminder, I've got all afternoon of where we're at by month. So up to here in June, we're talking about those scenarios. And then July is when your TAC, you're gonna take this input and input from staff and say, okay, can we craft, a recommended scenario? Maybe there's a backup scenario in case there's a little bit of a close tie between those two. And bring that back to you for your discussion, deliberation, changes. Like I've been saying all along, this is a long process. The final decision is from you. It has to be one that you like the best and most comfortable with. So that'll be an important meeting to be there, or if you can't be there, I would appreciate communicating with staff and your alternate. Now, some of you have alternates, some don't have like an official alternate. So if you don't have an official alternate, Chair, I don't know if you have an official alternate for the county. Now's the time to think about, do you want to send an alternate, for that? It's an important meeting. So please, we want to have as many voices around the table as possible. Thank you, Mayor, for showing up despite feeling the best today. I appreciate you joining us.
You're welcome. I appreciate you putting up with my cynicism.
Always love it.
keep it going, Michael.
The other thing in that table is something that, the legislature is considering a big bill for transportation. I looked at it last week and this week, and just wanted to, in case you didn't know, one funding stream funds something called the Anchor Project Account. And from that account, $125 million is going to be going toward projects on that list. It's a short list. The 2 major ones are the I-5 Rose Corridor, which was just mentioned, and the I-205 Abernethy Bridge. So in this version of the bill, legislature is saying those are our top 2 projects for that account. And after that, there's 3 other projects. It's listed on here. It's the Newburgh-Dundee bypass. It's the I-205 widening, and then the Highway 22 seismic upgrade. That's the one that's important to us, right? The Highway 22 seismic upgrade.
That's the bridge here.
That's the bridge in Salem. So, and I'm going to speak up, but if you have your hand up, I see it with that. We recently There's gonna be a phase one coming in 2026, but we're gonna need a phase two eventually. So Anna, do you wanna?
Yeah, hi, thank you. And Mike, I would say I think that bills have been amended to remove that project list. So, and those projects on the list, which is interesting. And I haven't watched all the sessions to determine how that happened. So I think the new amended bill, and I haven't seen the latest. I looked at it last week and I don't know if it's been amended again. But anyway, those projects weren't listed.
But Ann, I took this from the bill that passed the committee, the -23 bill. So unless
On
there's a new
Friday?
bill, yeah, unless there's a new bill as of today.
Well, maybe it got put back in there. I was watching the committee meeting on Friday and it went kind of late.
It just
And
happened.
Things are changing fast.
so,
there.
maybe they amended it back in. Anyway.
Well, I looked at the engrossed bill. I looked at the engrossed bill that came out.
Oh, okay. Sorry
Oh.
to pipe in.
No, I mean,
Um,
if I'm wrong, I want to know. If I'm wrong and you find out more information, we want to know. Because
I will.
obviously that's an important project for this committee.
yes, for sure.
And just for the record, Anna, Brandon, and our local ODOT staff, they work their tails off. But if what's happening up above is where I think it gets lost. And that's where I'm hoping we can get some accountability. And we gotta
Thank
figure
you,
out
Commissioner.
to make this happen and real, but it's gotta be within reason. I served on one of the committees for maintenance and operations. And the consensus was, we wanted to find money on won't be a two-way street. We were asking ODOT to come back to us with ways that they can be more efficient with funds. And shorten some of their guidelines in getting these projects completed. I don't think that ever happened. I think that kind of that's where some of the dissension is right now in the Capitol building, is it's going one way. I constantly kept repeating that we wanted to find ways to raise funds that does not affect our everyday cost of living. Because our constituents are barely getting paycheck to paycheck. We don't need to add more daily costs. So that new car tax, they had an example on a new car tax that a 5% fee on a new car purchase would resolve the issue. And that's something that 5% on buying a car is not gonna stop you from buying a car. You can put it over time in your payments. But that one bill would take care of the shortfall. And we all discussed it. They were looking for 3 to 4 possible tax structures. Not every one of the ideas that they put into this bill. So that's what happened in those meetings. And to where it is today, it's like, it didn't really matter. It's very frustrating, but moving forward, I hope they come up with something that's amenable to all of us. So
Well,
anything else? Go ahead, Michael.
I was just saying, Ray was sending me some links this morning about what's happening, bills, and it sounds like, there's even a possibility, even though it passed out of the committee, there might be some push from the leadership to go back to committee and make some more changes. So we'll be watching the news to see what's gonna happen. You know.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of amendments. All right. Anybody got anything else? With that, we're adjourned. You got 30 minutes of your day back. Woo-hoo.
Thank you. Bye.
You.